Hi everyone, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host of Fiberchats, and my guest today is Frederico Edvarzo Cardozo. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me in.
Oh, it's my
That's
pleasure.
awesome.
So I
Thank you, Adrian.
stumbled on your account on Instagram, and of course, the first thing that caught my attention was the fact that you jumped off the airplane with the parachute and knitting needles, and you knitted while in the air.
Yeah,
What was
exactly.
like, why did you decide to bring your knitting with you?
Oh, to the airplane. Well, I actually tried to do the same. I once saw a nice, very radical old lady that jumped with her. I think it was her grandchild. I think he actually maneuvered the parachute, and she was in front. She was like making what they call the tandem jump,
Mhm.
and it was on Iceland. And she actually made knitting while she was jumping on the parachute.
Right.
So I decided, why? If the lady can do that, why can't a man do? Why can't? Because I'm the macho man. I have to do it.
Well, let's talk
So
about the Macho Men. So I know
yeah,
that, like, I've heard you talk about it, and I've heard you say that basically it was in a joking sort of way, the irony of playing on the words that, like, Macho Man is somebody who is like this big, rough guy, and then the knitting is thought nowadays of something like very feminine, and you wanted to make fun of that, and that's why you called yourself macho man, macho knitting man. So do you get a lot of it? Do you get a lot of questions about, like, why you knitting?
yeah. I actually have a lot of questions. People ask me all kinds of different. Well, to be honest, probably we could start from the beginning. I decided to create this page on Facebook, and I decided to call it Knitted by Macho Man because here in Portugal, there's the stereotype of exactly as you were saying, Irina. Uh, men are macho men are big, strong, and do this kind of hard things,
Right.
and they have this stereotype that they are angry with ladies, they shout, even during the old times, like medieval age, they will punch or whatever. So I'm trying to make fun of it and make an irony of that, to especially to the South Latin countries in Europe, whereas the stereotype of a macho man, it's someone that's also very, that's part of the society.
Right.
So I was explaining that this kind of stereotype on the society, and what happened, it's actually something that's it was hard to get, making something that was used to be by women, especially after the Second World War,
Right.
and especially in Portugal, they had the same problem. But it's quite funny, because the more I get inside the society, when I go in public and start knitting, there's always someone who talks. Oh, my father used to do that.
Right.
Oh, my father, or my uncle used to help my aunt. Oh, my grandfather made a sweater for my grandmother, something like that. So something that was a thing that I thought it was stereotype, but actually was made, but inside the house.
Right.
So
Yeah,
nobody
it's like
knew
it's
about it.
ironic because, like, if you go back in history, it used to be all male knitting guilds. Like, that was the thing. Like, women were not knitting, it was all men that were knitting. And then somehow, like, in the last 50 years, it turned into this, like, female dominated field. And suddenly, like, men have to make a space for themselves in the knitting community. Like, I find it actually very ironic. Um, so do you feel like it's your role to educate other men or women for this matter about the fact that it's like totally normal, acceptable, and historically proven that it was like the thing for men to knit.
Yeah, exactly. I try to give more information about what happened in history, and I show pictures, and also with other groups that I've noticed when I get in Facebook and Instagram and other media, social, how do you say, social webs and things like that. You know, we can actually see that so many of groups showing part of the history that happened about knitting.
Right.
And if you try to find out when was the, for example, the oldest sock in the world, you will see it was made by during the Egyptians era, and it was only like two feet in 1 foot.
Right.
And for example, in Europe, you also see like a big jacket in the in the in a church when the Spanish king would died, and beside of his sword there was this kind of metal knitting
Chainmail.
shirt that, yeah, but was made also by men.
Right.
And the more you get inside, and you even in the middle age, you during that period of time you could check it. It was like you had to make a course for about like 8 years, and then you had to make an exam, for example, to make a proper sweater, if I'm not wrong about my studies. But if you failed, you had to make more 2 years until you have the opportunity to make another test again. So it was something really, really quite tough to get inside. So it was something during the old times. Sewing was the primarily activity that was shown on paintings and written by priests. But what happened afterwards? It was something made by just nobles and persons who were from high society.
Right.
And knitting was something that was made by the low classes. And you can even see some pictures when there was in Paris, when after the Renaissance, and the King Louis was cutting his hair with Queen Josephine. There were some ladies knitting and shouting for liberty and things like that. So it was something from the lower classes.
Right.
So I think it started gaining more into higher society, especially on the First and Second World War, because it was part of the propaganda of sending really hot clothes for the people who were on the first front of the war and facing also the weather when it was winter and cold.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that you can track, actually have information. That's a good thing about the web. So you have to reach this, and you can inform people about it. That's, I
Well,
think, it's my
let's
mission with
go
this.
like a little bit back, right?
All right.
So there you are, growing in Portugal, and you have Norwegian roots also, right?
Exactly. My mother's Norwegian, my father's Portuguese.
Right. And Norwegian people have like this very rich culture of knitting, and Portuguese
Exactly.
have their own culture of knitting. There's like whole different knitting style, right?
Yes.
So you grow up, did your mom knit?
Yes, my mother actually had the group knitting group here in Portugal. My mother's, she's almost like 50 years here in Portugal living, and she had a group of knitting ladies, knitting Scandinavian ladies, like Swedish and Finnish. They got all together, talk about their lives, and drinking tea, making a cake, and also they decided to knit. But it was a group that uh, it was something that it didn't happen like every month or every 2 months. It was when they feel like doing.
You didn't learn to knit as a child.
No, I didn't. I had contact with wool. We had the kind of classes when you're like 14, 15 years old here in Portugal, that you get some kind of how do you say, you can have some kind of contact with fibers. But
Right.
after that, normally what happens, it's just you make a project. In my case, I just made a small, how do you say, it was a little carpet I made with a Snoopy, with a face of a Snoopy.
At what point did you decide to learn how
Oh,
to?
it was quite late. I decided to learn to knit because I wanted to make some bennies for my kids. We were going to, it was like January, February, and we were going for a ski trip in April, something like that. And I thought it was nice to make some hats. And why did I decide to learn it? Because I already had my aunts from Norway making the Mariusgenser. I don't know if you heard about them. They're quite popular in Norway. It's also, yeah, it's the Marius sweater. And the story is really nice. If you want, I can explain you afterwards. But my aunt made it, and I didn't have grandparents at the time, and I decided to learn by myself. I was too shy to ask my aunt again to make some bennies.
The first hat that you made, so the first project was a hat, right?
No, actually, it was a scarf.
The scarf. So what did that look like?
Yeah, bad, very bad.
But like
I
back
haven't
then
finished
when you
it.
made it, like when you first made it, did you think it looked pretty good?
No, it was horrible. The colors were horrible. The needles were too small. The fibers were, when I was, it's like I tried to do it and then it falls down, and then I decided to make it again. I was like, when I tried to knit and then purl, I was always coming back to project. And when you do it so many times, the fiber start losing elasticity. I don't know if it's kind of a glue that goes away and then it starts to open.
Right.
So the project was, even nowadays, I still have the scarf, but I will never finish it until I die, for sure. I will leave it like that.
Well, it's a reminder. You can look at it and see how far you came in the world of knitting.
Exactly. Thank you.
So
Yes,
now
but
that you, like, and you went from that scarf, right, to actually
yeah,
teaching people how to knit now. So what was your journey?
yes. Oh, it was awesome. It was amazing. Um, we have like, wow, it was like this. It's probably like 7, 8 years old, years ago. Yeah, when I made my page on Facebook, and then I decided to connect with other ladies who had their own groups. And for example, when one of the stitch fall down, I decided like to go 100 miles just to ask a lady, and it's called the Yarn Gang. That's a kind of a mafia group in a way that have their own cells around Portugal.
Right.
And it's very funny because it's like, I decided to go to the how do you say, to the highest gangster to try to teach me how to pick up the stitch. So
Right.
I decided to go by car 100 miles because I was terrified that one of my stitch fall down from my needle, and I couldn't ask anyone because I was afraid of people trying to explain me in a very fast way. And it was also the purpose of meeting other people in different groups and try to learn how they organized. So it was really funny. And When I went there, I said, "Oh, I cannot make a scarf, but I already made some socks." They said, "Wow, you made some socks?" Yeah, but how can you cannot make a scarf if you can make some socks? I don't know. Probably I was lucky. And I had kind of a YouTube
Right.
project that it was showing in a very easy way. That's the problem, here, that most of the people, they try to learn in the most difficult way. It's like I always make this kind of metaphor, comparing, like, when you don't know how to drive, you don't ask your grandma to share her Formula One car, just to try it, if you to know how to start driving, because when you you get your feet on the accelerator, you crash the car. So that's what I decided to tell people. You have to start with not very big needles, probably 8 millimeters. Here in Portugal, we use millimeters.
Right.
Probably it's what in the US it's a 5. I don't know.
Probably.
Probably, yeah. So you use kind of a 5, and then you use a kind of yarn that it's not so small, and try to ask someone that could help you and show you with really nice videos, and try to learn in the most easiest way, not trying to build every stitch how they born, and people just get crazy with how do we put in the needle.
Have you ever tried to teach your wife how to knit?
My wife, yeah, when I had a project,
Does she
I
knit?
had a huge project that I had to make for a fair. I had to make, like, it was like 7 or 8 famous Portuguese personalities from different areas, from poetry to history and things like that. And I only had 1 month, so everybody learned how to crochet during that time, and knitting. Everybody was working at home, so we could finally manage to make all the figures until the fair would open.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
because it was like a very small deadline.
right. How
Mm.
does your wife react to the fact that you are a knitter?
At the beginning, it was really hard to understand why was I doing that instead of picking the biggest wave like McNamara in Nazaré Beach. Why don't you like do something really radical and crazy as a macho man?
Right.
so so it was quite difficult at the beginning, because everybody was like proud, and the friend of them was saying, "Oh, look, he's so nice doing things," and she just told me, it's not your husband, it's my husband. So it was hard at the beginning, and also you can feel, if I was knitting in public at the beginning, was a little bit difficult and scary to see the reaction of the people, because they look like if you were, I don't know, from another planet, probably.
Right.
So but I start I always joke about this kind of situation. When I get in nervous situations, I always try to make something funny about it, so I can try to reduce the maximum pressure that probably goes around the people. And normally that's uh, occurs to have a positive vibe. But nowadays, it's people don't feel that anymore. What's happened is they get very curious about it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Do you think there is like a curiosity, more of a curiosity factor when people look at you? Do you ever feel like there is any hostility, or you think people just never seen it, so it's sort of like this new thing?
When I started like 8 9 years ago, yes, but it's grown so fast, the knitting community, that nowadays they just get curious.
Right.
It's really funny in a good way, curious in a good way.
So I wanted to ask you, and we talked a little bit about it before this interview. Do people, so like a lot of my friends are male knitters. A lot of
Yeah,
male knitters are also gay. Do people
yeah.
assume that you are gay? Are you being asked if you are gay? Like, is there an assumption that every male knitter is gay?
Yeah, there's the idea that I'm gay, but what happens? It's people. It depends. Someone's know me from my background that I'm not gay, and they think it's funny that I do it, but and they feel it proudly, like, wow, your courage, like you have a strong personality, so you can do it whatever you want. And I think even though there's a lot of gay doing that, it's we had a really good relation between each others.
Right.
It's because, to be honest, it doesn't matter if you're gay or not. You know, it doesn't mean if you're male, female, young, old. That doesn't matter if you are
I
yellow with
I
stripes.
agree completely. Right. I mean,
So it's
I'm with
it's
you.
and
I'm just wondering, like, if you feel like it takes even more bravery to be not only a man knitter, but to be a straight man knitter, like that, do you feel like there is even more judgment on you? So people don't only judge you for being a man knitter, but for being a straight man knitter.
judging, I think they don't judge, but I think that the message that I gave, it could, if they don't know me from anywhere else, they say, "Oh, it's another gay person,"
Right.
uh, instead of not being gay. So it's I think what's much harder is to pass the message that even being gay or not being gay, you can be a knitter. What's my mission? What I want to when I go in public and people ask me, what's the most important for me? It's not to say, oh, I'm not a gay or whatever. For me, the most important thing is to pass the message that knitting, it's really good, and it's called the new yoga, and it really helps you with mindfulness. That's
Right.
the most important message about it.
No, I must tell
So
you, like one time I was having interview with somebody, and one of the comments was, "Can you please interview a straight male knitter?" And it actually really bothered me because I felt like, my choices are being questioned, and I felt like those men were judged extra for being gay. Like it was acceptable for gay to be a knitter, but not for straight men. Like this whole division into like two categories between men somehow like really irritated me in that
yeah,
one
yeah, yeah.
comment. So I feel
But
like
it's
it's hard
mhm.
enough to be a man knitter, right? And then suddenly you have to also defend like your sexuality in that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. For me, to be honest, I have stories about other ways. I met a guy in England, and he decided to have his own shop because he wanted to mix up with all people. Doesn't matter if they are old, young,
Right.
whatever their sexual orientation, and that's why he made the shop. Because before, when he was with just ladies, they weren't really comfortable that he's being there because they want to chat about their private lives. And then afterwards, he decided to make just a men group. And what happened? It's unfortunately he couldn't get straight guys.
Right.
And actually, what happened is has a group of gays all around because he was also gay. And then in the end, he because he wanted to have contact with everyone, he decided to make a shop, and now it's one of the most uh, important shops in the world if you want to have a reference. you go to his shop, because he's amazing guy. I like him a lot. And we actually made a meeting there. It was like 7-8 years ago. I decided to go to London,
Right.
and but it was like three of us. No, it was only the straight guy. But it started like that. It's for example, you have a really big group in South America. It's called Hombres Tejedores, and it means men knitters.
Right.
Most of them, they are gay, but you also have straight people. But the sexual orientation never was something that was a conversation in that group.
No,
But
I feel like it's like my goal with starting this channel was
yeah,
to introduce different fiber artists from like all different walks of life, but also bring us together as a knitting community. Because I feel
yeah,
like
it's
there's
true.
all this like separation. There's like, this group and that group. And I wanted to all of us to understand that like we all knitters, we all crafters,
Yeah,
we all fiber artists. So that whole like categorizing into like you are this and you are that like actually really bothers me.
yeah, it's true. But no worries. One thing that actually happened during my public knitting sections, it's people just excuse me because oh, he's half Norwegian. The men used to do that. And
Right.
when I go to Norway, they say, oh, he's half Portuguese. The Portuguese people actually they knit, but not even in Norway or in Portugal. Men actually knit during 7 years ago.
Right.
Fortunately, nowadays there are lots of men knitting.
No, you know what
Uh,
I found interesting? I was interviewing Alison Randall. So she's a good friend of mine from Shetland. And in
all right.
Shetland, they have a program, they used to have program in school where
Yeah.
boys and girls, like everybody, were taught how to knit. So for like
Yes.
a couple years in school, everybody was taught how to knit. So I was talking to her at some point and I was like, Alison, do you know any male knitters in Shetland? And then there was like this quiet, right? And I was like, really? So what happens to all those boys who learned how to knit? Like what happened to them, Somehow
Yeah.
it's like it's still there is this stigma of that being a female area.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. What I can tell you, for example, here in Portugal, you also have, for example, some special kind of education, that you have special schools where
Mhm.
you have, for example, the Waldorf method.
Right,
And there, what I've heard, there are people who actually teach how to knit. Besides that, in the state schools, you only have like two subjects that it's on when you're 14 or 15, if I'm not wrong about it. But it's only 2 years that actually you can choose, or you will make a wood project, or you make electricity project, or you make, for example, fiber project.
right,
And then after that, it's exactly the same. They don't touch anymore, but they've learned it.
right,
So I knew that when was the period where we had the dictatorship until 1974, ladies had this kind of education, that they stayed at home, where they've learned how to care of the kids,
right,
and to be, how they called it, to be a proper wife. Doing that, they had all these kind of fiber contact, how to. Besides that, it's part of passing from grandmother to grandchild, or mother to child, and
right.
it's losing. And unfortunately, in Portugal, they have a huge, like in Norway, and probably I think in some cases even you have more different, I cannot say projects, but different ways of leading with fibers, because the knitting, came from the Arabic. I thought it was like already here, but no, it was imported,
Right.
because before that they had just one needle. Viking needle technique.
Yeah.
It's only one needle, and sewing was the main thing that was happening here. And during that time, they made so many things. You know, they have such a big history in Portugal, and unfortunately, they don't have a lot of information connected to just one book. There's a lady who actually has a historic. This called Rosa Pomar, and she's quite well known in the knitting Portuguese society, if you can call it by that. But because she has history backgrounds where she learned at school, and he decided to make a book about it, but it's still very small. There's so many things that has to be connected, because it will lose during the time if nobody continues doing it. Sorry, I talked too much about it.
No, don't worry. I want to ask you something different. You're a very active guy. You're a very athletic guy.
Yeah.
You windsurfing, right? You jump from with the parachute. How do you balance that with knitting? Because knitting is such a like you just sit and knit. How do you combine both like exercising and being very active with knitting?
Wow. How can you read a book if you knit? I don't know. How can you see a film in Netflix and knit at the same time? I don't know. It's like eating. First, it's quite strange and it's quite hard to get it inside the world of knitting, but afterwards it's part of you. It's quite strange to say that. To be honest, during this summer and like this 2-3 months, I actually didn't need anything. I didn't have no ideas. I didn't have no things to. And today I decided inside the car, my wife was driving, and I was knitting. Start knitting socks. So I think it's like riding a bicycle. It's quite hard how to start, but then afterwards you can ride whenever you want. I think that's it. So you always find a moment to do these things, you know. It's important to keep me active, but it's also good also to lay down and stay. My wife loves to read. Actually, I don't read, or read very little. And while she's reading, I prefer knitting.
Right.
And but it's quite hard to understand, because sorry to say this expression, but don't be frightened what I'm saying, but it's like cocaine. You get addicted to it, and the more you do it, then you want to explore more. Then you start reading and start watching videos and seeing what people are doing in the other side of the world, and you try to imitate or do something similar. And it's a huge world.
When you knit, right? Do you like to challenge it? Because like it's the same, like you know, being so athletic, being so into like extreme sports, like jumping with parachutes, all this like sailing and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have the same personality in knitting? Like, do you approach knitting as extreme sport? Do you want to see like what's the most difficult thing you can achieve? What's the most difficult technique you can learn? Like, do you have the same?
Yeah, I do. And the more you get inside, the more you get excited to it. It's like getting inside the extreme sports. It's you're getting into Red Bull, you know, channel of knitting.
So, what's the
Um,
most difficult thing you've knitted so far?
for me, it's to. I'm going to be. It was just the simple. The simple plane that actually made in public. And why was it so difficult? Because I was years and years trying to make in a legal way, trying to go to the town hall, get license and everything. And then when I see that the system is so bureaucratic for artists, it's really hard to. I don't know in your country, but here in Portugal, artists are, besides of being very badly paid, but at the same time, if you want to do something in public, you really have to go outside and get courage to do it in public. So I talked with graffiters, try to understand how they make their own art in public before getting a bill from the policeman, or you have to so for me it was really hard to make this plane. And then after I made the plane, I had just a guy from the other side of the world is saying, oh, there's another guy doing the same thing. So it's like, whoa, okay, so what's the thing? It's art. I'm passing art from the others.
Right.
So even between artists, you have like small fights, like, oh, you cannot do that. Like it's the other guy on the other planet, it's doing exactly the same. So it was really hard. That was the most important, even though it was just a small plane. It looks like the message that you gave in Instagram. It's really small, the symbol, but it's very in technical ways. This is about my brain, how difficult it was, and I'm still doing that. I really want to introduce, I don't know if you know London K, made by London,
No.
if you know her projects. And I've talked to her several times, and she said, go Fred, just do it. Don't bother about police, just show the art. I really think my mission is to give people, especially in Portugal and Norway, wherever I go, to get more in contact with fibers. Because if they don't get with contact with fibers, and if I don't do it in a public way, this past Portuguese, Norwegian, and even the world will surely die. So like this interview that they're doing, and I'm really grateful for that, will make us alive. But until that's why I decided to also make the parachutes. Probably I will be diving and also knit, make something that will shock people, like in TikTok or whatever.
Right.
So people get connected to fibers. I think that's my mission.
So what are you doing now? Like what's happening right now, basically?
Now in October, I'm going to make a workshop of arm knitting, just to show people, especially teenagers. I have like ambassador of a Portuguese brand for mobiles, but it's like, it's, how you can say, like Vodafone Junior. Sorry if I say the brand, but it's called Marsh. And in Portugal, it's quite famous. Like, it's radical things that you can do. Like, you can learn how to make graffitis, you can make how to skate, and you also can learn with the Macho Men how to make some arm knitting. So I get all together with graffiters, skaters, all these radical guys. And I think it's really cool because fibers are getting inside the radical and getting again with teenagers in a very cool way. So I'll do that on October, and probably we'll see how things go. But my priority at this moment, contact with town halls and try to do some installations. I will always make my socks and things like that, but primarily I'm trying to get the fibers into public.
And the main reason for that is just to bring awareness of the craft, that you want more people to think about it, to see it, to touch it, and to get interested in it, right?
Exactly. I think it's a different art, and you have so many places that you can actually install fibers without being without changing the urban aspect, the buildings or whatever, and you can do it with yarn.
Right.
For example, once I had actually the police, like, with some lights when I was making the installation of a plane, and I just pick up the yarn, and the fiber took it up in 1-2 minutes, and it stays exactly before with no material at all in the place that I made it. So it was really clean, and it's not invasive, if you can say that.
Right. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to see
Mhm.
what else you're gonna make and where else you're
Yeah.
gonna meet. And thank you so much for being my guest today. I really loved getting to know you.
Thank you so much, Irene. I hope to talk to you soon and stay in touch.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for your invitation. And sorry for the delay
Oh,
and
don't
the
worry about
sound, but we finally managed to see each other and talk. And I hope if anyone just want to talk and have a little bit more knowledge needed by Macho Man, just go ahead and TM me. All right.
I'm gonna put
Thank you
all
so
the
much,
links.
Irina.
I'm gonna put the links to your chat to your Instagram page
Okay.
to find you under the description of this video so they can reach out to you and follow you on Instagram and help you out maybe with the
Yeah.
installation.
Thank you so much, Irina.
Okay.
And good luck for your projects also. And hope to see you soon. Have a good knitting, everyone. Bye bye. Cheerio.